Sold. That one word shattered her entire world. Emma stood trembling on the auction block, the cold chains biting into her wrists, clutching her newborn son so tight her knuckles turned white. The crowd of rogue wolves snarled, bidding on her like she was cattle, not a mother. She closed her eyes, praying for death rather than the fate awaiting her. But then, the doors didn't just open, they exploded inward. The temperature dropped. The snarling crowd fell dead silent. A man with eyes like molten gold walked in, his power suffocating the room. He didn't just want to buy her, he wanted to burn the world down for her. And what he whispered to her trembling form changed history forever. The warehouse smelled of stale beer, wet dog, and fear. It was a scent Emma Vance had grown accustomed to over the last 3 weeks, ever since her pack, the Silver Creek, had been decimated by rogues. She hadn't just lost her home, she had lost her status, her freedom, and the only protection she had for the 6-month-old bundle shivering against her chest. "Quiet, Leo," Emma whispered, her voice cracking as she rocked the infant. The baby's whimpers were barely audible over the raucous laughter of the men in the warehouse, but to a room full of werewolves with heightened hearing, he might as well have been screaming. "Next lot!" The auctioneer, a greasy man named Silas with a scar running down his left cheek, slammed his gavel on the podium. "Lot 42! A young Omega female, healthy. And a bonus," he sneered, pointing a thick finger at Leo. 2 guards grabbed Emma by the arms, dragging her toward the center of the stage. The spotlight blinded her. She stumbled, instinctively curling her body around Leo to shield him from the glare and the hungry eyes of the crowd. "Please," she begged, though she knew it was useless. "Take me, but let the boy go, please. Just leave him at an orphanage. Don't sell him." Silas laughed, the sound grating like sandpaper. "Sell him? No, darling. The pup comes as a package deal. Some alphas like a ready-made family to discipline." A wave of nausea hit Emma. The crowd below was a sea of predators. These weren't civilized pack wolves. These were the outcasts, the criminals, the ones who bought humans and wolves alike for sport. "Bidding starts at 5,000, Silas announced. 6,000, shouted a burly man in the front row, his teeth yellow and jagged. 7, 10,000. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. $10,000. That was the price of her life and her son's future. She looked down at Leo. He had his father's dark curls. The father who had died defending the pack borders. If these men took them, Leo wouldn't survive a week. Omegas were treated poorly enough. An unrelated male cub in a rogue pack was usually killed instantly to prevent future challenges. 15,000 going once, Silas yelled, grinning as he looked at a scarred alpha known as the Butcher, standing near the back. Sold to the gentleman in the gray coat. The Butcher stepped forward, his eyes locked on Emma's legs. Hand over the girl. I'll deal with the crying brat later. Emma screamed as the guards unlocked her chains, pushing her toward the edge of the stage. The Butcher reached out, his hand grasping for her ankle. This is it, Emma thought, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Leo. I failed you. But before the Butcher's fingers could graze her skin, a sound echoed through the warehouse. It wasn't a shout. It wasn't a gunshot. It was a growl. a low, vibrating rumble that shook the very foundations of the building, rattling the windows in their frames. The butcher froze. Silas dropped his gavel. The heavy steel doors at the back of the warehouse didn't open. They were ripped off their hinges. Dust swirled in the sudden draft as a silhouette stepped through the ruined doorway. The man was massive, standing well over 6'5", his shoulders broad enough to block out the moonlight from the street. He wore a tailored black suit that cost more than this entire building, but the civility of the clothes did nothing to hide the primal violence radiating off him. It was the aura. In the werewolf world, an alpha's command could force a subordinate to their knees. But this was different. This was Lycan blood. Ancient, royal, terrifying. Every wolf in the room, from the lowest rogue to the arrogant butcher, instinctively bared their necks or fell to the floor. The silence was absolute, broken only by the soft click of the stranger's dress shoes against the concrete floor. He walked past the cowering buyers, his gaze fixed solely on the stage. On Emma. Silas, the auctioneer, was shaking so hard the podium vibrated. "My lord," he stammered, recognizing the intruder. We didn't know this was your territory. Silence," the man said. His voice was calm, deep, and utterly devoid of mercy. He didn't stop until he stood at the base of the stage, looking up at Emma. Up close, she saw his face. He was terrifyingly handsome. Sharp jawline, dark hair swept back, and eyes that burned with a swirling mix of gold and black. King Kalen Thorne, the Lycan king, the ruler of the entire North American Council. He was a myth to people like Emma, a distant god who destroyed rogue packs for breakfast. Why was he here? In a dirty warehouse in the industrial district? Kalen ignored the guards, ignored Silas, and vaulted onto the stage with a grace that defied his size. The guards released Emma instantly, backing away as if she were on fire. Emma couldn't move. The sheer pressure of his presence made her knees weak. She clutched Leo tighter, expecting the king to kill everyone in the room, including her, for breaking the law. Kalen stopped inches from her. He smelled of rain, cedarwood, and blood. He looked at her tear-stained face, then lowered his gaze to the bundle in her arms. Leo let out a soft whimper. The room held its breath. If the baby annoyed the king, they were all dead. Instead, Kalen's expression shifted. The cold mask cracked, just for a fraction of a second. He reached out a hand. Emma flinched, closing her eyes. "Do not fear me," he murmured. The softness of his voice shocked her more than his shout would have. He didn't touch her. He turned around to face the crowd, his back to Emma, effectively shielding her from the room. "Who touched her?" Kalen asked. His voice was low, but it carried to every corner of the warehouse. The butcher, who had been trying to sneak away, froze. Kalen didn't even look at him. He just snapped his fingers. From the shadows of the doorway, a dozen elite Lycan warriors materialized. They moved like blur, descending on the buyers. "Deal with them," Kalen commanded. "Burn this place to the ground. Leave no one." Chaos erupted. Screams filled the air as the king's guard began the slaughter, but Kalen didn't join the fray. He turned back to Emma, Unbuttoning his suit jacket, he took it off and wrapped it around her shoulders. It was heavy, warm, and smelled intoxicatingly of him. "Can you walk?" he asked. Emma nodded mutely, though her legs felt like jelly. "Come," he said, offering his arm. "This is no place for a queen." Emma sat in the back of a black armored SUV, the leather soft beneath her fingers. The chaos of the warehouse was fading behind them, replaced by the smooth hum of the engine. She was in shock. King Kalen sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. He hadn't spoken since they left the building. He was typing on a tablet, his face illuminated by the blue light. Emma looked down at Leo. The baby had finally fallen asleep, exhausted by the stress. "Why?" she whispered, breaking the silence. Kalen paused, his fingers hovering over the screen. He turned to look at her. "Why what? Why did you save me? I'm just a Silver Creek Omega. My pack is gone. I have nothing to offer you, and—" She hesitated, looking at Leo. "I come with baggage." Kalen set the tablet down. He turned his body fully toward her. In the confined space of the car, his size was overwhelming, yet he made himself seem smaller, less threatening. "You are not just a Silver Creek Omega, Emma Vance," Kalen said, knowing her name. "You are the daughter of Marcus Vance." Emma's breath hitched. "My father, he was just a beta. He died years ago. Your father was my father's most trusted guardian. He hid you away when the wars began." "To protect you," Kalen revealed, his eyes intense. "I have been looking for Marcus's bloodline for 3 years. When my scouts reported a woman matching your description at the auction, I drove myself." Emma processed this. She wasn't just a random rescue. She was a debt being paid. "So you're going to give me money, set me up somewhere safe?" Kalen's jaw tightened. He looked at Leo, sleeping soundly. He reached out, and this time, Emma didn't pull away. He brushed a thumb wildly gently over the baby's cheek. His finger was large, calloused, capable of tearing a throat out, yet he touched the child as if he were made of glass. "The world is dangerous, Emma," Kalen said softly. "The enemies who destroyed your pack are still out there. If I put you in a safe house, they will find you. If I give you money, they will take it." "Then what will happen to us?" Emma asked, fear creeping back in. "I'm a servant. I can clean. I can cook in the palace kitchens." Kalen shook his head slowly. "No, you will not serve." He leaned in closer, his golden eyes locking onto hers, burning with a fierce, possessive intensity that made her stomach flip. "I need a Luna," he stated. "The council has been pressuring me to take a mate to secure the lineage. I refused them all because I do not want a political pawn. I want someone who understands loss. Someone who fights for what they love." He gestured to the baby in her arms. "You stood on an auction block surrounded by monsters and begged only for his life," Kalen said. "That is the strength I need by my side." "But," Emma stammered, looking from him to the baby, "he isn't yours. No alpha wants another male's cub. You'll resent him." Kalen reached out and cupped Emma's chin, forcing her to look at him. His skin was electric against hers. "Look at me, Emma," he commanded, his voice dropping an octave, vibrating through her bones. "I am not an alpha. I am a king. I do not fear a child. I raise warriors." He looked down at Leo, then back at her, his expression turning solemn, almost like a vow. "From this moment forward, the past is dead. He carries your name, but he will live under my protection. He will eat at my table. He will air my strength." Kalen wiped a tear from Emma's cheek with his thumb. "You were sold with a baby in your arms, thinking your life was over," he whispered. "But let me be clear. I will be father and husband both." Emma stared at him, stunned into silence. The contract was sealed, not with ink, but with the fire in his eyes. The car slowed as it approached massive iron gates. Through the window, Emma saw a sprawling estate lit up against the night sky, the royal Lycan palace. "Welcome home, my queen," Kalen said. But as the gates opened, Emma saw a woman standing on the front steps, flanked by guards. She was tall, blonde, and looking at the car with a gaze that could curdle milk. "Who is that?" Emma asked. Her momentary relief shattered. Kalen's face hardened. "That is Lady Sophia, the woman the council wants me to marry. And she does not like to lose." The engine of the armored SUV cut, plunging the cabin into silence. Outside, the gravel driveway of the Blackwood estate, the ancestral home of the Lycan kings, glittered under the floodlights like crushed diamonds. But Emma didn't see the beauty. She only saw the woman standing on the marble steps. Lady Sophia of the Northern Crescent Pack was everything Emma was not. She wore a dress of white silk that clung to her curves. Her blonde hair was styled in perfect waves, and her posture was rigid, demanding authority. She looked like a queen. Emma, wrapped in Kalen's oversized suit jacket, smelling of the warehouse and clutching a sleeping infant, felt like a stray dog that had wandered into a ballroom. "Stay close to me," Kalen murmured, opening his door. The moment Kalen stepped out, the guards flanking the stairs snapped to attention. He walked around the vehicle and opened Emma's door, offering his hand. As she stepped out, the night air bit at her skin, but Kalen's presence was a furnace of heat beside her. Sophia descended the stairs, her heels clicking rhythmically on the stone. Her smile was tight, not reaching her ice-blue eyes. "Kalen," she purred, ignoring Emma entirely to place a familiar hand on the king's bicep. "You've been gone for hours," the council was worried. "We heard reports of a disturbance in the industrial district. Surely you didn't dirty your hands yourself?" Kalen stepped back subtly, causing Sophia's hand to drop. "I was handling pack business, Sophia." Something the council failed to address. Sophia's gaze finally flicked to Emma. It was a look of pure, unadulterated disgust. It swept over Emma's dirty, torn dress, her tangled hair, and finally landed on the bundle in her arms. "And what is this?" Sophia laughed, a brittle sound. "A charity case. Did you pick up a stray on your way home? The kitchens are full, Kalen. We don't need more scullery maids." Emma shrank back, clutching Leo tighter. This was exactly what she feared. She didn't belong here. "Careful, Sophia." Kalen's voice was low, a warning growl vibrating in his chest. "You are speaking to my guest." "Guest?" Sophia raised a sculpted eyebrow. "She smells of rogue and sour milk. And that thing she's holding, it's a pup. A male pup. Her eyes widened in mock scandal. Kaelin, you cannot bring a random Omega and her bastard into the royal residence. Think of the optics. The press will have a field day. I said, "Move," Kaelin commanded. He didn't shout, but the alpha power in his voice hit them like a physical wave. The guards flinched. Sophia took a stumbling step back, her face paling. Kaelin placed a protective hand on the small of Emma's back, guiding her up the stairs. "Do not look at her," he whispered to Emma. "Keep your head up. You are with me." They swept past Sophia, who stood frozen with humiliation, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. As they entered the grand foyer, Emma gasped. The ceiling soared 30 feet high, adorned with crystal chandeliers. The floor was polished obsidian. A double staircase curved upward, leading to the private quarters. An elderly woman in a stiff black uniform hurried forward. This was Martha, the head housekeeper. "Your Majesty," Martha bowed. "We weren't expecting company." "Martha, prepare the Queen's suite," Kaelin ordered, without breaking stride. The silence in the foyer was deafening. Martha blinked, her composure slipping. "The Queen's suite, sir. But that room has been sealed since your mother passed, and Lady Sophia has been requesting—" "I did not ask what Lady Sophia requested." Kaelin cut her off. "I gave an order. Open it, air it out, and bring warm milk and soft blankets for the child. Now." "Yes, Your Majesty, immediately." Martha scrambled away, barking orders to junior maids. Kaelin guided Emma up the stairs, away from the prying eyes of the staff. When they finally reached the double mahogany doors of the Queen's suite, he pushed them open. The room was larger than the entire house Emma had grown up in. A 4-poster bed the size of a small island sat in the center, draped in gold and velvet. A fire was already crackling in the hearth, likely lit by magic or a fast-acting servant. Kaelin led her to the velvet armchair by the fire. "Sit," he said gently. Emma sank into the chair, her legs finally giving out. She looked up at him, her eyes wide. "You put me in the Queen's room. That woman, Sophia, she's going to kill me." Kaelin knelt before her, bringing himself to her eye level. He reached out and touched Leo's tiny hand. The baby stirred but didn't cry, seemingly soothed by the alpha scent. "Sophia is a politician," Kaelin said, his voice hard. "She fights with words and whispers. You have survived starvation, rogues, and the auction block. You are stronger than she will ever be." "She said I smell like sour milk," Emma whispered, looking down in shame. "To her, maybe," Kaelin said intensely. He leaned in, inhaling deeply near the crook of her neck. Emma's heart stopped. "To me, you smell like fresh rain and survival. You smell like mine." He pulled back before the moment could become too overwhelming, standing up abruptly. "Rest. The maids will bring a bath and food. I have a council meeting to handle. I need to explain why I just slaughtered 20 men in a warehouse." He paused at the door, his hand on the knob. "Lock the door, Emma. Open it for no one but me or Martha." As the heavy door clicked shut, Emma looked around the opulent room. She was safe, for now, but as she laid Leo in the center of the giant bed, She couldn't shake the image of Sophia's eyes. They were the eyes of a predator who had just spotted prey. Emma wasn't the queen. She was the intruder. And in a pack, intruders were usually torn apart. The next morning the sun streamed through the heavy velvet curtains, blinding Emma. For a moment, she panicked, forgetting where she was. Then, she felt the softness of the Egyptian cotton sheets and heard the soft cooing of Leo beside her. She wasn't in the cage. She was in the palace. A sharp knock on the door broke her reverie. "Emma, it is Kaelin." She scrambled out of bed, grabbing a silk robe that had been left for her. "Come in." Kaelin entered, looking exhausted. He clearly hadn't slept. He was still wearing the same shirt from the night before, the top buttons undone, sleeves rolled up to reveal thick forearms corded with muscle. But his expression was grim. "Get dressed," he said, tossing a garment bag onto the bed. "The council is here. They know." Emma froze. "They know what?" "They know I brought an Omega and a child into the royal wing. They are demanding an audience." Kaelin rubbed his temples. "Sophia has been busy. She spun a story that I have been bewitched by a rogue spy." "I can leave," Emma said quickly, reaching for Leo. "I don't want to cause you trouble, Kaelin. Just give us a car and we'll go." Kaelin crossed the room in 2 strides, grabbing her shoulders. "Stop. You are not leaving. If you leave now, they win. And if you leave, you die. The butcher's brother is looking for you. He wants revenge for what I did at the warehouse." Emma's blood ran cold. She was trapped. "Put on the dress," Kaelin commanded softly. "And bring the boy. It is time we stopped hiding." The council chamber was a circular room built of ancient stone, smelling of old parchment and dry power. 5 elders sat at a high, curved table. To the side stood Sophia, looking smug, dressed in a sharp red power suit. When Kaelin entered, the room went silent. But when Emma followed, carrying Leo, the whispers erupted like a hive of angry bees. Emma wore the dress Kaelin had given her, a modest but elegant navy blue gown that matched the color of the Royal Guard uniforms. It was a subtle statement. "She is under my protection." "Silence!" Kaelin's voice thundered, echoing off the stone walls. Elder Marcus, the oldest of the wolves, stood up. He leaned on a cane topped with a silver wolf's head. "King Kaelin, this is highly irregular. You have brought an unregistered female into the inner sanctum, and a cub." Marcus looked at Leo with disdain. "Is it yours?" "He is under my protection," Kaelin said, dodging the biological question. "That makes him mine in all ways that matter." "That is not our law," Sophia interjected, stepping forward. "The line of kings must remain pure, Kaelin. You cannot simply adopt a stray and call him a prince. The blood must be tested. If the child is of rogue descent, he is a danger to the pack. Rogue madness is genetic." "He is not a rogue," Emma spoke up, her voice trembling but clear. "His father was a guardian of the Silver Creek pack. He died a hero." Sophia laughed cruelly. "So you say. But Omegas are known to lie to secure a better station. I propose a test." The elders nodded in agreement. "A test is reasonable," Elder Marcus said. "The Alpha Blood Oath." The room gasped. Kaelin snarled, stepping in front of Emma. "No, that ritual is for warriors, not infants. It could kill him." If he is strong enough to be in the royal household, he will survive, Sophia said coldly. If he is weak, well, nature takes its course. The alpha blood oath was an ancient, barbaric tradition. The alpha king would cut his palm, and a drop of his blood would be placed on the subject's forehead. If the subject was loyal and worthy, the blood would be absorbed, granting them protection. If they were enemies or weak, the blood would burn them like acid. "I will not allow it," Kalen growled, his eyes flashing gold. His canines began to extend. "If you refuse," Elder Marcus said gravely, "the council will trigger the vote of no confidence. You will be stripped of your crown, Kalen. And then we will kill the boy anyway." It was a checkmate. Emma looked at Kalen's back. He was shaking with rage. He was ready to fight the entire council for her. But if he did, he would lose everything. She couldn't let him destroy his kingdom for them. "Do it," Emma whispered. Kalen whipped around. "Emma, no, do it," she repeated, stepping forward. Her eyes locked on Sophia. "My son is not weak. And he is not a liar. Test him." The room held its breath. Kalen looked at her, seeing a fire in her eyes he hadn't expected. Reluctantly, he nodded. "Bring the dagger," Kalen commanded. A guard brought a silver obsidian dagger. Kalen sliced his palm without flinching. Dark, potent blood welled up. Emma knelt, holding Leo out. The baby was awake, looking around with wide, curious eyes. He didn't cry. Kalen's hand trembled slightly as he reached out. He pressed his bloody thumb against Leo's tiny forehead. "Please," Emma prayed. "Please let him live." For a second, nothing happened. The blood sat there, red and stark against the baby's pale skin. Sophia smirked. "See? Nothing. The blood rejects him. He is." Suddenly, the room was filled with a blinding golden light. The blood on Leo's forehead didn't burn. It didn't just absorb. It glowed. The golden mark of the Lycan king flared to life on the baby's skin, swirling into the shape of a crown. Leo giggled, reaching up to grab Kalen's thumb. The elders gasped, falling back into their chairs. Sophia's jaw dropped. "Impossible," Elder Marcus whispered. "The blood, it didn't just accept him, it claimed him. The ancient kings have blessed him." Kalen stared at the boy, shock written on his face. He had expected the blood to merely be safe. He hadn't expected the ancestors to intervene. He looked up at Emma, who was weeping silently in relief. "He is not just a wolf," Kalen announced, his voice ringing with renewed power. "He is my heir, and let any who challenge him answer to me." He scooped Emma and Leo up, turning his back on the stunned council. "This meeting is adjourned," Kalen declared. As they walked out, Sophia stood alone in the center of the room, her face twisted in a mask of pure hatred. She pulled out her phone and sent a text message. Plan B. The brat is protected by magic. We move to the mother. Tonight. Back in the safety of the hallway, Emma leaned against Kalen, her adrenaline crashing. "What just happened?" she asked breathlessly. Kalen looked down at Leo, who was happily chewing on his fist, the faint golden mark fading from his forehead but leaving a spiritual imprint. "I don't know," Kalen admitted, a frown creasing his brow. "That has never happened in the history of our kind. Leo isn't just a Silver Creek wolf, Emma. There is something else in his bloodline, something ancient." "Is that good?" It means he is powerful, Kaylin said darkly, but it also means he is a target. Sophia won't stop. And now, she knows she can't touch the boy. He stopped walking and turned Emma to face him. You need to be marked, Kaylin said urgently. Tonight, I need to claim you as my mate. It is the only way to extend my protection to you fully. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Marked? But we don't even know each other. You bought me yesterday. We don't have the luxury of courtship, Emma, Kaylin said, his eyes searching hers. I feel the pull. I know you feel it too. The moon goddess didn't bring us together by accident. He leaned closer, his lips brushing her ear. Let me mark you. Let me make you mine. Before Emma could answer, a piercing alarm shattered the air. The lights in the hallway turned red. Breach! A guard shouted from down the hall. Perimeter breach! The rogue army is at the gates. Kaylin cursed, shoving Emma into the nearest room, the library, and slamming the door. Stay here! He roared. Do not open this door! He shifted. The sound of bones cracking filled the air as the man became the beast, a massive, midnight black Lycan standing 8 feet tall. He roared, a sound that shook the glass, and charged down the hallway toward the screams. Emma locked the door, clutching Leo. She backed away into the shadows of the library, but she wasn't alone. From behind the high-backed leather chair by the fireplace, a figure stepped out. It wasn't a rogue. It was a man in a waiter's uniform, holding a silenced pistol. Hello, Emma. The man smiled. It was Silas, the auctioneer. Did you think you could just walk away without paying your debt? The library was silent, save for the muffled sounds of chaos echoing from the distant palace gates. Inside, the air was thick, with the scent of old paper and immediate death. Silas stood casually by the fireplace, the silenced pistol leveled at Emma's chest. He looked out of place in the opulent room, his cheap suit stained with grease, contrasting sharply with the rows of leather-bound books. Put the baby on the floor, Emma, Silas said, his voice eerily calm. Slowly. Emma's breath came in shallow, terrified gasps. She backed away until her legs hit the edge of a heavy oak desk. How did you get in here? The palace is a fortress. A fortress is only as strong as the person holding the keys. Silas sneered, stepping closer. Your friend Lady Sophia is quite the negotiator. She didn't like the idea of a street rat becoming queen. She unlocked the service tunnels for us. My boys are outside keeping the king busy with a little distraction, while I'm here to collect the merchandise. He's not merchandise, Emma spat, her fear momentarily eclipsed by a mother's rage. She shifted Leo to her left hip, her right hand groping behind her on the desk, searching for anything, a pen, a bookend, anything weaponized. He is now. Silas laughed. We saw the live stream of the council meeting, Emma. The kid glowed. Do you have any idea what a Lycan blessed child is worth on the black market? Scientists, dark covens, they'll pay billions to dissect him. The thought made Emma's stomach churn. You're sick. I'm a businessman. Now hand him over, or I shoot you in the leg and take him from your bleeding corpse. Silas clicked the safety off. Emma's fingers brushed against something cold and sharp. A silver letter opener, shaped like a dagger. "Okay," Emma whispered, feigning defeat. She bowed her head, weeping. "Okay, please, just don't hurt him." "That's a good girl," Silas smirked, lowering his aim slightly as he reached out with his free hand. As he stepped into range, Emma screamed. She didn't hand over the baby. She lunged. With all the force of a mother protecting her young, she drove the silver letter opener downward. Silas howled, not in anger, but in agony. He had expected submission. He got steel through the back of his hand, pinning it to the oak desk. The gun went off. "Put!" The bullet shattered a vase next to Emma's head, showering her in porcelain shards. She didn't flinch. She grabbed a heavy crystal decanter of whiskey and swung it with both hands, smashing it into Silas's face. He crumbled to the floor, blood and alcohol blinding him. Emma didn't wait to see if he was unconscious. She grabbed Leo, who was now wailing, and sprinted for the door. But before she could reach the handle, the wood splintered inward. A massive black claw punched through the door, ripping it from its hinges as if it were cardboard. King Kalen stood there. He was half-shifted, a terrifying hybrid of man and monster. His shirt was in ribbons, his chest heaving, covered in the blood of the rogues he had just slaughtered outside. His golden eyes were slit pupils, wild and frantic. He saw Emma. He saw the shattered glass. And then he saw Silas groaning on the floor. The king didn't speak. He didn't need to. A low, vibrating growl started in his chest, a sound so deep it rattled Emma's teeth. Kalen stepped over the debris, moving toward Silas, with the inevitability of death itself. Silas tried to crawl away, whimpering. "Wait, wait, it was Sophia. She made me." Kalen's hand, now a massive paw, tipped with razor-sharp obsidian claws, clamped around Silas's head. "You dared," Kalen's voice was a distorted, demonic rasp, "to hunt in my home." There was a sickening crunch. The whimpering stopped. Kalen stood there for a moment, breathing heavily, the violence radiating off him in waves. Emma pressed herself against the bookshelf, shielding Leo's eyes. She should have been terrified of the monster in front of her. But she wasn't. Because the monster had just killed the nightmare. Slowly, the fur receded. The claws retracted. Kalen's bones snapped back into place until he was a man again. A blood-soaked, naked, furious man. He didn't care about his nudity. He turned to Emma, his eyes searching her for injuries. "Did he touch you?" Kalen demanded, his voice returning to human cadence but trembling with adrenaline. "No," Emma whispered. I stabbed him." Kalen looked at the dead body, then at the bloody letter opener on the desk. A look of fierce pride flashed across his face. "Good," he breathed. He crossed the room and pulled Emma and Leo into his arms. The contact was messy. He was covered in blood, but Emma buried her face in his chest, sobbing. He held them so tight she could barely breathe, burying his face in her hair. The attack outside. It was a diversion. Kalen growled against her neck. There were only 50 of them. "Suicidal weaklings meant to draw me out." Silas said Sophia let them in. Emma revealed, pulling back to look at him. He said she opened the service tunnels. Kalen went rigid. The warmth left his body, replaced by a cold, terrifying resolve. "Stay here," he commanded. "Martha!" The head housekeeper appeared in the doorway, looking pale but determined, holding a shotgun. "I'm here, my lord!" "Guard my mate and my son," Kalen ordered. "If anyone but me enters this room, shoot to kill." "With pleasure, sire." Kalen turned toward the door, grabbing a pair of pants from a stunned footman who had run up the stairs. He pulled them on, his eyes burning with golden fire. "Where are you going?" Emma asked. "To take out the trash," Kalen said. The silence in the library was heavier than the chaos that had preceded it. The dead body of Silas lay twisted on the Persian rug, a testament to the violence that had just occurred. But Kalen had eyes only for Emma. He stood there, his chest heaving, the remnants of his shift fading as his bones settled back into their human structure. He was covered in the blood of the 50 rogues he had slaughtered at the gates, a terrifying vision of primal rage. Yet, as he looked at Emma, who was trembling against the bookshelf with Leo clutched to her chest, the golden fire in his eyes softened into something agonizingly human. "Emma," he breathed, his voice rough like gravel. He stepped over the debris, ignoring the shattered glass slicing into his bare feet. When he reached her, he didn't grab her. He hovered, his hands shaking slightly, terrified that the monster he had just been would scare her away. "I'm here," she whispered, her voice cracking. "We're safe." Kalen let out a shuddering breath and pulled her into him. He didn't care about the blood coating his skin. He needed to feel her heartbeat. He buried his face in the crook of her neck, inhaling the scent of her fear and her survival. "I should have been here," he growled against her skin, the vibration running through her body. "I left you alone. I let that filth into our home. You didn't know." Emma soothed him, shifting Leo so he was sandwiched safely between them. The baby, miraculously, was quiet, his wide eyes staring up at Kalen with that same strange, intelligent recognition he had shown in the council chamber. It was Sophia. "Silas," he said. She opened the tunnels. At the mention of her name, Kalen pulled back. The tenderness evaporated, replaced by a cold, glacial fury that lowered the temperature in the room. "She opened the tunnels," he repeated, the words tasting like ash. "She let a hitman into the royal wing to slaughter a mother and child." He turned to look at the door where Martha, the housekeeper, was still standing guard with a shotgun, her knuckles white. "Martha," Kalen commanded, his voice devoid of emotion. "Take the queen and the prince to the panic room in the east wing. Lock them in. Do not open the door until I give the code word, Vance." "No," Emma said, firmly. Kalen whipped around, surprised. "Emma, this isn't a negotiation. It is still dangerous." "I am not hiding in a hole while you fight for us," Emma said, stepping forward. She reached out and took a velvet drape from the window, ripping it down to wipe the blood from Kalen's chest. "You said I was a queen. You said I was strong. If Sophia wants to destroy this family, she needs to look me in the eye when she fails." Kalen stared at her. In her torn dress, with dust in her hair and a baby on her hip, she looked more regal than any pureblood he had ever met. "Very well," Kalen said, a dark pride swelling in his chest. "Then let us go and greet our guest." The great hall of the Blackwood estate was a scene of devastation. The massive crystal chandelier lay shattered on the floor. Smoke billowed from the entryway, where the rogue wolves had tried to burn the doors down. Dozens of royal guards were tending to their wounds, while servants scurried around with buckets of water and bandages. In the center of the storm stood Lady Sophia. She was immaculate. Not a hair was out of place. She wore a pristine white coat, walking among the wounded guards, offering water and shouting orders with the air of a benevolent leader. "Secure the perimeter!" She barked at the captain of the guard, a loyal wolf named Garrett who was bleeding from a gash on his forehead. "I want a head count of the enemy dead, and where is the king? Why has no one found him?" "I am right here, Sophia." The voice didn't shout, but it carried through the cavernous hall like the tolling of a funeral bell. Every movement in the hall stopped. The servants froze. The guards snapped to attention, ignoring their pain. Kalen descended the grand double staircase. He had not bothered to put on a shirt. He wore only torn suit trousers, his torso a map of scars and fresh blood. But it was the energy radiating off him that terrified them. It was the aura of an apex predator who had been pushed too far. And beside him walked Emma. She held her head high, carrying the heir to the silver throne. Sophia turned, and for a split second her mask slipped. Shock, pure and unfiltered, flashed across her face. She had expected a corpse. She had expected a grieving, broken king. Instead, she saw a united front. But Sophia was a master manipulator. She recovered instantly, rushing forward with tears welling in her ice-blue eyes. "Kalen!" she cried, her voice trembling with practiced relief. "Oh, thank the goddess. We heard gunshots from the library. I feared the worst. And Emma, you survived." She said the last part with a sickening sweetness. Kalen didn't stop walking until he was toe-to-toe with her. He towered over her, blocking out the light. "You feared the worst?" Kalen asked softly. "Or did you hope for it?" Sophia blinked, taking a step back. I don't understand. The rogues, they broke through the main gate. It was chaos. I've been trying to organize the defense." "Liar." The word cracked like a whip. Kalen reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black device. It was a biometric data pad, ripped from the wall of the security room on his way down. "The rogues didn't break the gate, Sophia," Kalen said, holding the screen up for the gathered wolves to see. "The perimeter alarm was disabled from the inside. Specifically, from the service tunnel override panel." The room went deathly silent. Even the wounded stopped groaning. "That panel requires a level 5 clearance," Kalen continued, his voice rising, carrying the weight of judgment. "Only 3 people have that clearance. Me, my head of security, and the council liaison." He threw the data pad at her feet. It skittered across the marble, displaying a single name in flashing red letters. Auth. Lady Sophia. 8:04 p.m. Kalen read the log aloud. "You disabled the sensors. You unlocked the doors. And you let 50 rabid dogs into my home to eat my son." Sophia stared at the datapad. The color drained from her face, leaving her looking like a wax doll. She looked around the room, hoping for support, but the guards were looking at her with undisguised hatred. To betray a pack was a crime. To endanger a pup was a sin. It was necessary, she whispered, her voice trembling not with fear, but with rage. Necessary? Emma spoke up, stepping forward. To kill a baby? Sophia snapped. The mask shattered completely. Her face twisted into a snarl of pure venom. He is not a baby, she shrieked, pointing a manicured finger at Leo. He is a mongrel, a pollution. Kaelin, you are the Lycan king. Your bloodline is sacred. You cannot mix it with the DNA of a weak, discarded Omega and some dead nobody. That dead nobody, Kaelin growled, stepping in front of Emma, had more honor in his death than you have ever had in your life. I did it for the pack. Sophia screamed, backing away as the guards began to circle her. I did it to save us from your madness. The council agrees with me. They want a pure heir, not a charity case. Do not speak for us, child. The heavy oak doors of the entryway groaned open. 5 figures walked in, flanked by their own elite guards. It was the Council of 12. They had arrived via helicopter moments after the attack ended, alerted by the system breach. Elder Marcus, the leader of the council, walked with a heavy cane. He looked at the destruction in the hall, then at the trembling Sophia. We wanted a secure lineage, Sophia, Marcus said, his voice heavy with disappointment. We did not ask for infanticide. And we certainly did not authorize treason. He is bewitched, Sophia pleaded, turning to Marcus. Look at him. He chooses her over his own kind, my kind. Kaelin interrupted, his voice booming. Protects the innocent. My kind does not hire assassins to kill women in their bedrooms. Kaelin turned to the captain of the guard. Captain Garrett. Yes, sire. Garrett stepped forward, ignoring the blood dripping into his eye. Lady Sophia is hereby stripped of her title, her rank, and her name. Kaelin pronounced the sentence. She is no longer a wolf of the Northern Crescent. She is no longer a guest of this house. She is rogue. The word hung in the air. To be branded rogue was a death sentence. It meant no pack would ever take her in. She would be hunted. Sophia let out a primal scream. No, you can't. I am highborn. Realizing her life was over, Sophia made a desperate final gamble. Her body convulsed, bones cracking as she forced a shift. White fur burst through her designer coat. A massive white wolf materialized, snarling, and launched itself not at Kaelin, but at Emma. If she was going down, she was taking the Omega with her. Emma! Kaelin roared. But he was too far away. The white wolf was mid-air, jaws snapping toward Leo's head. Emma didn't scream. She didn't run. She turned her back to the beast, curling around Leo, using her own body as a shield, prepared to take the bite. Bang! The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Sophia's wolf didn't land on Emma. It was blasted sideways, skidding across the obsidian floor, howling in pain. Martha stood there, the shotgun smoking in her hands. I told you, the elderly housekeeper said, pumping the shotgun with a metallic clack-clack. I would shoot to kill. Sophia lay on the floor, bleeding from a shoulder wound, trying to rise. But before she could, a shadow fell over her. Kaelin was there. He didn't shift. He simply reached down, grabbed the white wolf by the scruff of the neck, and lifted her into the air with one hand. His strength was supernatural. He looked into the wolf's terrified eyes. "You are lucky," Kalen whispered to her. "If you had touched a hair on their heads, I would have peeled the skin from your bones." He threw her toward the open doors where the council guards were waiting. "Take her to the Deadlands," Kalen ordered. "Dump her beyond the border. If she survives the cold, the feral rogues will finish the job." As Sophia was dragged away, whimpering and broken, a silence settled over the great hall. It wasn't fearful anymore. It was the silence of a storm that had finally passed. Kalen stood in the center of the room, his chest heaving. He closed his eyes, centering himself, pushing the alpha rage back down. Then he felt a small, warm hand on his arm. He opened his eyes. Emma was there. She looked up at him, her eyes shining with tears. She reached up and touched his face, her thumb tracing the sharp line of his jaw. "You saved us," she whispered. "No." Kalen shook his head, covering her hand with his own large, blood-stained one. "Martha saved us. You saved us. I just took out the trash." A ripple of laughter went through the room, breaking the tension. Kalen turned to look at his pack. The guards, the servants, the council members. They were all watching him, waiting. He took a deep breath and turned fully to Emma. "Emma Vance," he said, his voice ringing clear and strong. "3 days ago, I walked into a warehouse looking for a memory of my father's friend. I didn't expect to find my future." He dropped to one knee. The room gasped. A king never knelt. Not for anyone. "Kalen," Emma gasped. "What are you doing?" "I am begging," Kalen said, looking up at her with raw vulnerability. "I have spent my life ruling a kingdom of cold stone and political alliances. I have power, I have money, I have armies. But until you walked into this house, I had nothing." He reached out and gently took Leo's tiny hand, then Emma's. "I made a promise in the car. I said I would be father and husband both. But I want to make another promise. I promise to earn you. Every single day, I promise that no one will ever look down on you again. I promise that you will never be sold, never be bargained, and never be afraid." He reached into his pocket, not for the ring he had planned to give Sophia, but for his own personal signet ring, the ring of the first Lycan, a heavy band of ancient gold with a ruby that glowed like a living heart. "This ring cannot be bought," Kalen said. "It can only be given. It symbolizes my soul, my power, and my life. It is yours, Emma, if you will have me. Will you marry me? Will you help me rebuild this pack into something better? Something kind?" Emma looked down at the man who had burned the world for her. She looked at the king who loved a child not of his blood simply because the child needed a father. She saw the monsters he had fought, and the gentleness he kept only for her. Tears streamed down her face, washing away the dirt and the fear. "Yes," she whispered, her voice choking with emotion. "Yes. 1,000 times, yes." Kalen slid the heavy ring onto her finger. It was loose, but as soon as it passed her knuckle, it glowed with a faint warmth, shrinking to fit her perfectly, ancient magic recognizing its new mistress. Kaelin stood up and pulled her into a kiss that seared the air around them. It wasn't a polite, royal kiss. It was passionate, desperate, and claiming. When they broke apart, breathless, a gurgling laugh drew their attention. Leo was clapping his chubby hands, the golden mark on his forehead flaring faintly for just a second, as if in approval. Kaelin laughed, a sound of pure joy. He took the baby from Emma and lifted him high into the air, turning to face the room. "Behold!" Kaelin's voice thundered. "The war is over! Tonight we celebrate!" He looked at the council members, his gaze challenging them to object. "This is Queen Emma," he declared, "and this is Prince Leo, first of his name, heir to the House of Thorn, protected by the blood, chosen by the king." Elder Marcus looked at the happy trio. He looked at the golden aura faintly shimmering around the baby. He bowed his head low. "Long live the king," Marcus intoned. The guards slammed their fists against their chests. The servants curtsied deep. The shout filled the hall, shaking the very rafters. "Long live the king! Long live the queen! Long live the prince!" Emma leaned into Kaelin's side, his arm heavy and warm around her shoulders. She looked out at the sea of bowing wolves. She had lost everything: her pack, her home, her freedom. She had been a number on an auction list. But as she looked up at Kaelin, who was smiling down at Leo with the pride of a true father, she realized she hadn't lost anything. She had been stripped bare so she could find the one thing that mattered. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was the mother of a prince. She was the mate of a king. And she was finally, truly home. Wow! Just wow! Can we talk about Martha with the shotgun? That was the plot twist I didn't know I needed. Emma went from a terrified girl in chains to a queen who stood down a shifting wolf to protect her son. That is the definition of power. And let's not ignore that ending. Leo's mark glowed again. The council bowed to him. Kaelin declared him the heir. This changes everything in the werewolf world. A baby born of a guardian, adopted by a Lycan king, and blessed by the ancestors? He's going to be unstoppable. Do you think Sophia will survive the Deadlands and come back for revenge in a sequel? Or is she gone for good? Let me know your theories in the comments. If this story gave you chills, please hit that like button. Let's try to get this video to 10,000 likes. And if you haven't already, subscribe and ring the bell. Next week, we're dropping a story that is even crazier. My twin sister stole my identity to marry the alpha, but he recognized my scent at the wedding. Trust me, the drama in that one is next level. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.